There are many great examples of great police work, police intervention, times where a policeman or woman really stepped up to the plate and really pulled a Superman move, where they ran into a burning building and saved a baby, right? Things we see in movies, where a policeman saved a hostage that was being held captive for days or hours, who knows. There's many great examples all over the news, all over the internet. But you don't really need an example that big to know the importance of policemen and women. And that's actually what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to try to persuade you guys to support our local authorities and to kind of not ignore the bad rep that they've been getting, but understand with reasons that I am about to give you. And well, one of those not so big stories that I want to talk about is actually an anecdote of me when I was 10 years old. When I was 10, I was living in La Habra at an apartment complex. And I remember that day that I panicked, I was freaking out a little bit because, 10 years old, I don't really know much at 10, And I remember that my neighbors upstairs were having a really loud party. It was like 4 to 5 guys, and they were all heavily intoxicated, and they were all we could hear crashing and banging across the walls, and they were having a good old time. And by midnight, we're like, okay, we'll let them, we'll let them have it for a little bit. But by 1 and 2 and 3 a.m., my dad was getting really mad, and he was faced with 2 options. He could either, 1, go up to the front door and confront them and say, hey, you need to keep it down or else. Or he could call the cops, which is what any reasonable person would do, right? Obviously, he called the cops, thank God. And not 5 minutes passed when we saw a squad car pull up in our complex, and they immediately found the room where all the noise was coming from, as it wasn't hard to find, it was 3:30 in the morning, and it wasn't hard to find. They knocked on their door, and the altercation didn't last more than 2 minutes, They just said, hey, you need to keep it down, we've got a call from the neighbors. Pretty standard. They said, okay, yeah. Truth be told, we didn't hear about them having another party for months afterwards, And it was just that little show of force that really demonstrated to them that it was authority, That they said, oh, okay, we need to keep it down, right? Eventually, they started partying again, but not for months afterwards, so we were okay with that. And, it was... The reason my dad called the cops is because I had to be up at 7 a.m. to go to school. He had to be at work at 6, and nobody was asleep in the apartment complex. Everybody was up. We might as well have partied with them, but, everybody was trying to sleep. But, and I'm glad that those turn of events happened like that. Now, let's look at the alternative. Say there was no one at the end of that phone call, right? Say my dad picked up the phone, called the Berea Police, or La Howard Police Department, sorry, which was where I was living at the time. And there was no one at the end of that phone call, right? My dad would have been faced with 2 options. He could either suck it up and been late for work or not slept at night, or he could have knocked on their front door and said, hey, you need to keep it down, right? And we all know the dynamics that 5 males can play while heavily intoxicated and, with testosterone up and them, showing off to each other buddies. I don't think it would have ended well, right? An older guy coming down on 20, 25-year-olds and saying, yeah, you need to keep it down. I don't think that would have turned out well. But then again, I don't know. And thankfully, I don't have to know, because we didn't have to do that, right? We could call the cops. We called the police department. And when I think of that example, when I picked this topic for my speech, I immediately thought of the movie. I don't know if you guys have seen this movie, but I saw it a few years ago. It's called A Day Without a Mexican. And if you guys haven't seen it, that's okay. I can describe it in 1 sentence. It's about a day without a Mexican, right? And in the movie, America one day wakes up, and there's no Mexican people, right? Or Hispanic people. And there's no one mowing the lawn or working fast food places, all those minimum wage jobs, right? And, chaos ensues because the economy drops, and everybody just doesn't know what to do, right? It's anarchy. It's economical anarchy. And I like to think of that movie, but instead of the word Mexican, I like to put police officer. And I think about a day without a police officer. How would that be? And I think that would be equivalent to what's going on what went on in Baltimore, right? The Baltimore protest, or the 1965 riots in LA, where people were looting and arson was being committed for really no apparent reason, just because there was a complete lack of authority. And that entitled people to steal, I guess, steal shoes, steal clothes, and that was because there was no cops around, right? Also, that movie, The Purge, that's how life would be like if there was no police, right? Every day, that's how it would be like. Or maybe not, but it is a great alternative, And so, thankfully, there is someone at the end of that phone call. There is someone at the end that responds to our call within minutes, you know. There's been a lot of bad rep recently with the deaths of people like Eric Garner and most recently Freddie Gray, that has been a man who has been killed in a very unjust manner. And I am not here to justify those deaths. I'm not here to defend the police officers that participated in the deaths of people like Freddie Gray or Michael Brown or Eric Garner. Because in truth, there is no defense to those people, you know, to those cops, I'm sorry. And I, as an individual, I am very glad that those 6 police officers that participated in the deaths of Freddie Gray are being served justice, you know, are being charged with manslaughter and an improper way of conducting the responsibilities that weren't taught to them. So I'm glad that justice is being served, and I'm glad that at least it's a small comfort to the Gray family. But I do have a problem with a little aspect of the situation, and the problem is the media. The media plays a huge role in how we see the world. And the media loves to explode these stories. And I agree with them. You know, I think that we should all know what's going on. I think we should all know the videos and stories and both sides of the stories. That's great. What I'm not okay with is the media making money off of this. I think I don't think that's right. I think that's, in a way, disrespectful to the Gray family or the Garner family. And I think that's not right. And I'm not okay with people the media exploding these stories and causing a lot of civilian unrest within our cities. Because as a result, we see the direct result of that, Baltimore. And people protest, they loot, they steal, they commit arson there's no logical reason to commit arson for the deaths of, I saw a lot of YouTube videos researching this topic, and I saw a lot of people, I get why they destroy squad cars, I get it, but why are they destroying civilian cars, that doesn't make any sense. I'm just like, what, didn't make any sense to me. And in truth, I really thought about this phrase that I came across, that you can't judge an organization by the actions of an individual, right? So, in contrast, if I were to commit an evil act, if I were to do something wrong, it wouldn't make sense to categorize you all in the same category that I would be in, right? Say, if I murder someone, you wouldn't all be murderers. That doesn't make sense, Just because one of you does an evil act doesn't mean that Fullerton College is evil. And yet that's how the media plays it out to be, because these 6 police officers did a truly evil act and killed an innocent man, well, the whole police department, they're all the same. Policemen and women are all the same. That's my problem with it, I will always support and defend the Gray family and the Garner relatives, but I'm not okay with the media exploding them and saying, oh, just because these 6 police officers are like this, everybody else is like this. Because in that small example, when I was 10 years old, that they really showed me how important policemen can be. And in truth, I've never really come across a policeman that's mean to me. They've all been pretty nice to me. You guys may have different altercations, but in my individual case, they've all been pretty cool, with me. And so that's why I support it so much. But coming back to the point where not every police officer is the same, we must also remember the responsibilities and the duties that they have. They face challenges that we, unless we're policemen or women, we don't face in our lives. We don't have to, When we're scared to do something about a crime being committed, or about calling our neighbors, like my dad did 10 years ago. We don't have to do it. We call the police, and sometimes they are faced with situations that we will never be faced with future violence, with potential unrest, things that we don't need to, because we're civilians and we're not police officers, right? And so I would just like to tell you guys to not forget the deaths of those civilians that have died at the hands of police officers, but also remember that most cops are heroes, and the vast majority of them are heroes. Another problem that I have with the media is that they say that these deaths happen every day, right? They're happening every day, and in truth, that's how they portray it. Because I watch the TV, and it's like someone being dead every day, someone being unjustly killed by a police officer. And I was like, well, in my logical mind, it was impossible, so I researched it. And I found that the Huffington Post reports around 1,000 civilian deaths by police officers. Census.gov, a government website obviously, has our current population at 320.8 million people in the US. Right? So to find the percentage, obviously you go 1,000 divided by 320.8, and the result is 0.000003%. That's that number, the number of civilians being killed by police officers. Now, I think it's safe to say that anything that happens to you, 0.000003% of the time, it's highly unlikely. It could be categorized as rare, right? And so that's why I'm confused as why the media portrays it to happen every day. It is truly irregular, it's unnatural, and it's truly rare. To close off, I would just like to remind you guys to, to not be blind to police injustice or the media, but to know the truth that just because the media tells you something, it's not 100% true. Right? Remember that cops are heroes because they have stressful jobs. And just remember that the next time you see a story such as that. So thank you.
So Jocelyn, what did you think?
I like your attention grabber. It was a good opening, your personal experience with it as well, and your anecdotes versus the alternatives. You have a good delivery, but I wasn't too sure what your thesis was. I kind of got it as to see persuade you to see police officers in a different perspective as to what the media is portraying them as. I didn't really hear a preview either, but you did specifically mention how and in what ways we can see police officers in a different way, as you described it as heroes. Your points, as you said, were media exploitation, personal stories. You did give some stats. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think you did a good job. I like your delivery, your voice projected fairly good. Yeah, that's
Thank you.